Karen Burchill here. This page, There Are Blessings Every Day, is a mixed media page inspired by my vacation on Rath River Beach, BC, and the art of mixed media moments. Here are some of my ATCs that I've been inspired to create on the island. So I'm going to use a lot of the same colors that I've been inspired to use, as well as the stencil. I'm going to put a beach down below, ocean, and the blue sky above. So I'm going to use the Liquid-X modeling paste and stencil in a heart. This was an idea from Mixed Media Moment video, and I will put the link below. It's a homemade stencil. And then I'm using the stencil Snake Web by, I believe it's Andy Skinner. It's a new one that I bought. And I think it's called Snake Web. But to me, it looks like rocks and pebbles on the beach. So I'm putting a thin coat. In hindsight, I'm thinking I should have dried the heart so I wouldn't have mucked it up. But in the end, I had gotten some very interesting texture, which added to the overall piece. After drying some of this, I decided that I needed to add a little bit more texture paste and make the sandy hill on the right side a little bit higher. When using texture paste or modeling paste, please make sure that you clean your stencils. It's a good way to ruin a stencil if you don't. So as I dried it, it did bubble up a little bit, but again, that added to it. Here I'm looking at my palette, and I find going back to my colors and selecting the colors from the sample page that I created is really easy and beneficial, and it's something that you can do. So you spend a little time at the beginning, and you gain the benefit every time you're doing a piece. And I find I'm using it more and more. So there I'm selecting the colors for the ocean from all the greens and teals. And I want to put some interest into there. Using the Inktense Blocks, this is very easy, and anybody can do this. This is basically, you can just scribble it on and muck it with your fingers or a baby wipe till you get the effect that you like. I'm adding water, trying to get some drippage, drying it, adding a little bit more color till I get the effect that I like. And everybody has that instinct and that color sense. Everybody's going to like something a little bit different. I'm looking to get some interesting textures and designs in this first layer of color that I'm laying down with my Inktense blocks. You might find to pick a totally different color zone, color scheme, and it would be lovely as well. Every one of us is individual, and we need to embrace that part of us. And while I got inspiration from Mixed Media Moments composition of this, the idea for the heart, I am venturing out on my own using different stencils, different techniques, different paint medium. So here I am removing some of the Inktense blocks, just like you can with the dilution sprays with the gelatos, with a lot of the sprays. And I believe this technique is called ghost print. So I'm using the stencil not to put on color, but to remove color. And this plaid stencil is much loved, and I will be getting another one fairly shortly. It's lost some of the white coloring that was on the top, and it has been used a lot. It's one of my favorites. So I wanted to make the waves out of it. I also wanted to see if the Inktense blocks worked for this technique, and they work extremely well. You get some of the wave lengths. So even when I dried it with the heat gun, I wasn't able to. So I like that. And while I plan on collaging over the sky, I thought I'm just going to do the same thing with this stencil. It's another new stencil. This is a joggle stencil, another recent purchase. So now I have some deli paper and coffee filter that have been used for cleanups in other projects that I brought with me on my vacation. And I'm just going to collage pieces of that, varying shades of blue and teal, and just collage the sky. I really like using deli paper. I find it adds a lot of texture. So on this I've used the ghost print to add texture to the water, the modeling paste for the texture on the rocks and the sand, and the collage technique to get the texture up here. All very, very easy techniques. And they all give a very different effect. And you can do this as well. So I'm selecting the colors for the sandy beach, and I'm picking some yellows and browns and greens of my Inktense blocks. And I'm just going to wet the brush and rub onto the sticks and lay in different colors and intensities of the Inktense blocks. A little bit more brown. And again, this is so incredibly simple. You continue doing it till you get the effect that you like. I'm trying to make sure I'm rubbing in and making sure that I get, highlights and lowlights, and covering all the little nooks and crannies that I've created with my stencil. We spraying this with some Lindy sprays. I believe this is sepia, just to add a little bit of glitz. You don't really see it at the end. I also believe I add some cactus gold to this later on. With the heat tool, I added some extra interest into the modeling paste, and it bubbled up, and then it makes even more nooks and crannies. Here I'm adding a little bit more green. I want that kind of seaweedy beach look there. Very, very easy. Just dropping in different colors, different shades from my palette that I've selected, the greens and browns and yellows. And drying it off. And then I'm just rubbing bits and pieces off of some of the stones, highlights, just to add interest to the overall page. If you go out and watch on the beach and look at all the varieties of colors, it isn't just one color. There's lots of shades. I'm using my Stampendous foliage block stamp and some StazOn to put the illusion of foliage and grass and seaweed on the rocks and on the edge of the beach. MixedMediaMoments used a script stamp on the water, and I like that effect, and I thought, okay, even though I've done some different things, I've just blocked off where I don't want the stamp to go. And while the script doesn't show to a large degree, it's just one more layer of interest added to the overall page. When I have a page, I want people to look at it and look at the details. I'm edging the page with some black StazOn. And I'm going to put some spray on the water part in Tibetan Poppy Teal. I want that little bit of shimmer. So I'm trying this, trying to get it to move a little bit. And I'll be adding another layer of this as well. And again, just doing it till it looks and feels right. There's no right or wrong. You can do this. I can do this. I'm putting some gold metallic, Martha Stewart gold metallic on the heart to make it pop. Adding some white Inktense block to the sky and adding a little bit of water, some highlights. In watching MixedMediaMoments, she added some highlights to the water to make the waves. She was using acrylics. The Inktense Blocks isn't quite giving me the effect I want, so I come up with another plan. But I like watching MixedMediaMoments videos. She explains the techniques of as she's adding highlights or she's adding different things. She tells us why, and I'm picking up some of those more artistic techniques. Adding some yellow to the sky, darkening the horizon so there's a little bit more of a division between the ocean and the water. Drawing it as I go, putting some dark underneath the highlights, just or shadows underneath the highlight. Adding another layer of gold just to really make that heart pop. Trying to make some of the swirls show through, wiping off some of the paint. Decide to use some of my Liquid-X Basics acrylics, and I'm going to use a credit card and just rub my card in it to add the highlights for the waves and in the horizon. So again, I'm just adding and seeing how I like it. I switched to a cut up credit card for a littler piece. I find I have a little more control. So I'm adding little bits here, and I'm really looking at the video camera at the screen to let me know how this is looking. And I'm liking this much better. And I'm going to use a phthalo blue, I believe, and just put the shadows underneath some of the highlights for the water. One thing doesn't work, try something else. You can't go wrong. You can always add another layer. Often, if I'm not videoing, I do stop and take pictures of what I'm doing. So I decide that I'm going to remove some of the Lindy sprays and add a few more swirls. I pretty much lost a lot of the swirls, so I thought, okay, well, let's see if I can get some more. And I didn't put as many as I had the first time, but I like the motion of the water. And I apologize if I was doing this late in the evening and sunlight had passed, and where I was situated on my vacation home, my lighting got very poor, and I didn't even notice until all of a sudden it's showing up on here. So I'm starting to notice that indeed the Lindy spray, the Tibetan teal, is really, I'm picking it up with the, when I catch it in the light. I went and I turned on some lights in the room, although you still get some shadows here because. So there's my quote. There are blessings every day. Find them, create them, treasure them. So I'm going to color this using some of the same colors of Inktense Blocks on the quote. And I believe I spray it as well with the Tibetan teal rope. Tibetan teal, wiping off excess. I usually end up cutting this up to be first, and then you have little pieces, and I decided that it'll be easier to have the bigger piece. So I've arranged them on there, the words on there, and applying the words with gel medium, kind of across. It didn't quite end up exactly where I wanted it, but I wanted the word treasure to be, treasure them on the heart. I want to remember the walks that I had on the beach with my niece. You know, it was a true blessing that I got to spend some of my holiday time with her, and this was kind of a memento of that. So I try with the pit pen, and it's just not quite working the way I want, so I go back to my Inktense pencils, grab a blue, not happy with it, so I change it out for the sepia black, sepia ink later on, and I'm happier with that. Outlining the heart, I also outline the edge of the beach and some of the rocks just for a little added color. I also use the pit pen to, or my, actually it wasn't the pit pen, it was the gel pen that I bought at the dollar store to outline some of the rocks, just that little bit of added detail. And again, the video here gets a little dark. I'm being a little stubborn and not totally relocating myself. There, I gave in, gave it some proper lighting. I'm edging with my Inktense pencil around the edge, activating it with water on the brush, just adding a little more. Again, just till I'm happy. You know, that's the thing. Just keep going till you are happy with what you have. With mixed media, with art journaling, it's very forgiving. So you can kind of see some of the shimmer now showing up in the better light on the ocean. Just using the gel pen to go over the letters. Some of them kind of got washed out. Now, on the walks with my niece, I collected these very tiny little shells and sand dollars. So I had sealed the sand dollars with Mod Podge earlier, and now I'm just applying them with some gel medium. Second summer in a row that my niece and I have gone and collected shells and planned on using them in my artwork. These actually made it on. And I like how the color of the shells brings up the color of the heart. I have the color wheel, and I had just learned that if you have on the back side of it, there's 5 colors, and you can use up to 2 to 5 of these colors to get an analogous color scheme. And I was just checking, and yeah, like I've gone from the gold, the teal, to the blues. All the colors are there, so there's a reason it's working. There's a little bit of close-up of the textures and the details. Treasure those blessings that you have, those memories. Thank you so much for watching. I love doing this page and sharing with you. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe.